Hello everyone, this is StrawberryShorty back with Theresia and what may be the final part. We're about to finish Dare Martell. I slowly open the door. The room inside is small and dusty. Suddenly my heart starts to pound. Nostalgia. That's not it. I'm sure I spent a lot of time here. This room just feels very familiar. There's a dirty piece of cloth on a picture frame, but there's nothing in the picture frame. There's a picture frame hung on top of a dirty piece of cloth, but there's nothing inside the frame. How strange. Move the picture frame. I move the picture frame to find a square tunnel behind it. I think I can fit if I crawl on all fours. After going a little further, I notice vines covering the whole area. I think I can get through here, but there was some interesting stuff in this room. Good, because I didn't want to leave. I think I've got time to give this room a closer look. A small, modest room. The room is cold and dark. There's a small lamp on the desk, surrounded by several pieces of paper. Empty ink bottles are scattered around the room, but among them, something catches my eye. The music box. Is this a music box? This music box, I remember seeing it. The old music box on the desk. I remember seeing it before. I slowly extend my trembling hand. With trembling hands, I wind the music box. This song, the music box's song, echoes across the room. This music box. I thought it was... The spring winds down and the music box slowly stops. That's right, before I lost my memory, I would often listen to this music box. Just a little more and I can remember everything. Just a little more. A small, modest room. My body's trembling. It's no use, I'm too scared to wind the spring again. Room of beginnings. This room holds pieces of my memory. The music box made me remember. North Sea room. This room makes me feel nostalgic. There are desks lined up. Washroom. This room smells sour. The individual stalls smell worse. Dining hall. This room has a warm atmosphere. We did that already. Before the stairs. A place in front of the stairs with dirty white clothes hanging. Oh wow. We're actually crawling through it. These are very spacious vines or vents. This room is a small square. This room has been taken over by vines. I see papers on the walls. There's a piece of paper hidden behind the vines. It's filled with words of regret, written in red. These words? There's some paper behind the vines. Do you remember this music box? You gave this to me for my birthday when I was still a little girl. I was so happy. I listened to it every day. I still treasure it. I'm losing my memory. You can't forget. Don't forget what you did. You can't die without remembering. April 25th, XX44. Memory. I must pay for my sins. I created the demon and I betrayed my companions. I strangled my sister to death. Her music box was playing the whole time it happened. I cannot allow myself to lose my memory. I left myself a letter. After I lose my memory, I will most likely wander around injured and bleeding. Please remember. I'll be praying. When I find this in the future, will I have paid for my sins? I trace the writing with my fingers. There's no doubt it's my writing. Could you say I've paid for my sins? He really needs more commentary on the stuff he says. As I touch the door to leave, a memory comes rushing back to me. With these hands, I killed my little sister. This piece of paper has the regrets of my past self written on it. Did I ever atone for my sins? I don't know what it wants us to do. Let's look at the glass. I can see a door through the vines. The only way to remove the vines is to burn them down. But if I burn the vines, I won't be able to go back the way I came. I'm not sure that's true. Use blowtorch. These plants seem really slimy. It's almost like they've been soaked in some kind of oil. If I set them on fire, I think I can clear a path through this vegetation. But these vines are everywhere. I'm pretty sure the fire would spread to the other rooms as well. It would also spread to us. The path I took to get here was covered in these vines too. If I light them on fire, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be able to go back that way. Light the plants. We should have took the music box with us. Just as I'm about to touch the blowtorch's flame to the vines, I hear the music box, playing the same tune as before. I know I've heard that music box before. The last time. The vines burst into flame and the fire spreads throughout the room. I like that sound. The vines are covered in some kind of oil and burn quickly. Once the vines have burned up, the fire should go out. But if I stay here, I'll undoubtedly burn to death. I can't go back. I have to keep moving forward. Is there really any point to going beyond here? Maybe I should just end it here. The vines blocking the door on fire, slowly withering in the heat. If I wait here until they burn completely, I'll die. It's just flames. No. The vines are engulfed in flames and smoke is spreading everywhere. At this rate, I'll burn to death. The vines blocking the door on fire, slowly withering in the heat. Will we even trigger a death here? I can't go back because of the fire. There's gotta be a door somewhere. I don't know what it wants me to do. Here, sorry, tell me what to do. This room is engulfed in flames. I need to get out of the room before I burn to death. Yes, I'm aware of that. I need to use something. 2x4? Swing 2x4. The vines burst into flame. I can only see their silhouettes. Eventually they begin to blacken and crumble. With a little work, I should be able to get through now. I swing the 2x4 viciously at the burnt, blackened vines. They crumble easily before the onslaught. Finally, the path is clear. I cover my face with my hands and begin running. I don't know if we can really run an event. The room where we keep our mirror. I made it through and into a large, empty room. There was almost nothing in it. In the end, I'm still alive. I don't feel happy or sad. I don't feel anything. There's a mirror blatantly placed in the middle of the room. I can't help but notice it. It's a huge room with a conspicuously placed mirror. The mirror seems like it was put there for a reason. I approach the mirror and take a look at myself. I flinch without thinking. Drenched in blood, covered in soot, stooped, broken. How ugly. I couldn't save anybody. I ran away and killed Martel. How horrible. Suddenly I see in the mirror Martel's face. He couldn't even show us our own reflection. That's right, your name. Theresia. Martel Theresia. It's a musical sting. That was her name. Vaccine Theresia was made using her DNA. These red beads. The red beads I see everywhere squirming and writhing are her. I've become so hideous I can't look in that mirror again. I need to get out of here. Go to North Hallway? The room I was in earlier is on fire. I don't think I should go back. West Hallway. This has been a real pain to get to this room down here. I can see the red beads squirming in the dark hallway. I can see the red beads squirming. Unable to take my eyes off the beautiful beads, I keep going. In the corner of the room is a small door. From behind that door, I can see a bright light. I grab the knob with shaking hands. Before I know it, I'm in a room with sunlight shining in through the window. I never thought I'd see light like this again. Broken bottles and flower petals. I carefully step into the room. Martel's room. This room has warm light coming through the window. It's been a while since I felt warm light. Mirror room. There's a large mirror in the room and nothing else. I saw my reflection in the mirror. Vine room. The room is covered in flames. Room of beginnings, we already did that one, so let's look around. I don't want to go back to the darkness. I must go into that light fast. There isn't anything of particular interest here. Light shines through this window and turns... The light shining through this window turns the room bright white. I don't want to go back to the darkness. I need to get to that light. Light shines through the window. I approach the window. Ah, it's so bright. A small piece of paper glows in the light. It's radioactive. April 4, XX41, reunion. When Theresia called for me, I returned to this orphanage for the first time in 10 years. Theresia had grown up to be such a stunning and beautiful woman. Until now, I was never able to love her because she is my half-sister. It seems she is referred to as Martel here. I intend to call her that as well. I will take over the orphanage in place of my deceased grandfather. I'm not good around people. Can I handle all these children? Will she forgive me for leaving her for the past 10 years? I'll keep a journal from now on. Getting the first entry last. I'm sorry about everything. Big brother. It's okay, come on. Or is she saying that? I open the window and walk into the field of red flowers. The fog is lifted and the warm rays of the sun shine down. I remember. Martel is here. I yell at her name and start digging frantically. These red flowers, they're so beautiful and I don't even know what they are. That was her end. Oh, seriously? Software update interrupting us at the most important moment? That was her end. Vaccine Theresia. No matter how much I dug, I couldn't find her. There is a woman staring at me as I dig frantically in the flowers. She picks up a flower and slowly makes her way over. Looking at me with a smile on her face is Emile. Stand up. I haven't heard her voice in so long. The army created their own strain of epicari, and now it's spreading across the world. We need vaccine Theresia. That's why I came here. Well, unfortunately, I left it in the orphanage, and it's all on fire. I don't fully understand what she says. Emile takes my hand, and we walk through the flowers. She begins to speak again. Vaccine Theresia has side effects. I ask her what they are, and she whispers in my ear. That is the closest we're going to get to seeing our protagonist. Her answer fills me with both joy and remorse. A moment that launched 1,000 fan theories. But Maylee's album will kind of clear it up. We hold each other tightly. We walk off together into the darkness of a forest path. Our hands entwined. It's not entirely clear when Dare Martell takes place. Like if they're meeting after Melee left in the events of Dare Emile. I would imagine so. Just because this dude never got mentioned at all in that game, or in that part of the game. It was us. I think it's us. The man and woman were dreaming. They awaken in the darkness, their memories lost. They find a message that says, Theresia. They begin to wonder, confused and ignorant. They begin looking for their memories. Searching for her mother, smeared with blood. And the girl with the warm smile. They wonder. They get hurt and cry. The name of the red beads is Theresia. Their struggle continues. They regain what they have lost. The existence of Theresia and the sins they must bear. At last they find Theresia. And they remember. remember how beautiful the red beads are. Finally, Theresia getting some love. They begin to wonder again. Embracing their affection for the red beads. I think this is the general consensus for Leanne still being alive and well. Captivated by its beauty and its ugliness. So that was Theresia Dare Martel. It's the whole thing is just a really great little gem of a horror game. And I don't remember, I swear it was said somewhere in the game, but it's generally assumed that Martel and Emile were like half-sisters or something. Now we're going to look at the new diary, Times Past, and see the story of Dare Martel. Brother, hurry. When I saw my little sister for the first time in 10 years, I acted like an idiot. But she welcomed me kindly with a warm smile. It was a small, nameless orphanage, hidden in the depths of the mountains of a country at war. I hate that they never gave him any kind of face or even a name or even a voice blurb. It's kind of frustrating. I'd come back for the first time in 10 years. Theresia Dare Martel, Times Past. Good thing we didn't try to do this for the previous part. When I was a child, I lived in a rural town with my mother and stepfather. I think this is where we get a hint that they might be related. Until one day, without warning, my stepfather suddenly left. Soon after his departure, my mother died in childbirth. The child was a girl. With nothing else to do, I took her to the orphanage my grandfather ran. He welcomed us with open arms and promised us a peaceful life. The orphanage wasn't luxurious, but it had everything we needed. The only thing it couldn't satisfy was my own lust for knowledge. After several years at the orphanage, I was adopted by an old couple and left my sister behind. Under the watchful eye of my cold adoptive parents, I studied and read like my life depended on it. By the time I was 20, I was lecturing at a prestigious medical school and researching new medications. One day, I received a letter from my little sister. Our grandfather had died suddenly, leaving the orphanage in a state of utter confusion. I decided to drop everything and go back to the orphanage. I had a few commitments, but nothing I was very attached to. I had gotten bored with my life, and I did feel bad for walking out on my sister 10 years before. I apologized for everything. Even after I apologized, I still couldn't look my sister, Martel, in the eye, but she just smiled. As she sat down, she picked up a small box and opened it. It was a music box. She gave me another warm smile and began to speak. Do you remember this music box? When I was a little girl, you gave it to me. I was so happy. I listened to it every day. I still treasure it. I'd given it to Martel as a birthday present when I left the orphanage. To be honest, I'd totally forgotten about it, but I pretended to be excited that she'd remembered. Martel just looked at me and smiled. She looked so happy. I ended up taking my grandfather's place at the orphanage. The orphanage also cared for sick children, and to that end there was a hospital connected to it. That's one mystery solved. My grandfather had been a religious man and had renovated a church to create the hospital. We continued his tradition of daily prayer. Martel sang the gospel, and everyone prayed as she sang. No matter how many times I saw her sing, I was always in awe. In the 10 years we'd been apart, my sister had become a beautiful woman. Until I'd come to the orphanage, I had always called Martel by her father's family name. You see, that's why people think that they're half-sisters, because they share the same last name. Theresia. I hated my stepfather. As a child, I refused to accept that I was related to her, his offspring. I made a point not to use her name. Eventually, it just became second nature to me. To me, her real name didn't even exist. But when I came back to the orphanage and called her Martel for the very first time, she looked happy. I'd always thought that names didn't mean that much. But when I saw the joy on her face, I began to feel pretty bad. Eventually, the orphanage began to function normally again. I stayed on as the director and resumed my medical research. After all, there were many children at the orphanage with incurable diseases. I learned that a woman named Emile was also doing research at the hospital. We began working together, researching new medications. And when I say I don't know, when it takes part, I'm talking about the epilogue. This part clearly takes place before the stuff with Leanne, because Epicari needed to be created. Or at least a portion of it takes place beforehand. I found we worked well together. Usually I don't get along with other people. But when I was with her, I felt strangely at ease. I discovered we both loved to drink, and we spent many nights doing so. Maylee was a strange woman. She gave alcohol to plants. She would tell me that plants and trees get lonely too, and would give my plants alcohol instead of water. I've often been told I was weird, different from other people. But I felt like I could relate to her. Our medicine would save the world. That wild dream was the subject of many conversations. Since I'd come to the orphanage, she was the first person I could laugh with. But she wasn't the first person I had considered a friend. I had trusted one person before I came to the orphanage, a doctor named Franz. When I heard that he didn't have a job, I decided to invite him to come and work at the orphanage hospital. He gladly accepted, and within a month he was working at the orphanage. Franz had been raised in the city and had mentioned many times that he would like to live in the country. In addition to being my friend, he was a talented doctor. I was happy to have him on staff. Now we can drink together again. The pretty ones never last. He grinned, and then he turned to greet the children. I was happier in the orphanage than I had ever been before. I learned with the children, played with the children, and spent all my time with them. Sick children were healed and left the orphanage with new parents. Maylee, Franz, myself, and the rest of the staff all became friends. It was the first time I'd felt such warmth and joy. I wondered, was this family? Martel always carried a bundle of bells with her. She told me the children had given them to her as a gift. Martel would ring her bells to get the children's attention. When it was time for food, when it was time for prayer, when it was bath time, when the children heard the bells, they would flock to Martel. The sound of the bell ringing always put my soul at ease. I think that bell sound effect is really annoying, though. Could use something with more twinkle. On one particular morning, her bells rang throughout the orphanage. When one of the children had a birthday, we would always have a big birthday celebration. That day was Jean's birthday. The party would be in the garden between the orphanage and the hospital. The staff and all of the children gave Jean their presents. I'd gotten Jean a stuffed fox with droopy ears. It was Martel's idea, but Jean really liked the stuffed animal. Poor Jean, and his complete utter lack of eyes. It's really obvious with him, unlike all the other characters where their eyes are just covered. He looked up at me with a smile as he gave the fox a hug. Jean was a little shy and had trouble interacting with others. I could relate to his situation, and I was often looking out for him. I tried not to show favoritism, but I cared for him a great deal. It made me happy to know that he loved my gift so much. Jean had suffered from a disease that had affected his foot, and as such, hadn't been able to walk. However, Franz had operated on his foot and Jean was slowly regaining mobility. Martel often helped Jean with his rehabilitation. After he finished a day's session, Martel would read him a story from the rocking chair in the playroom. Jean looked forward to that story time every day, and when I had time, I came by to listen to the stories. Not long before, Jean had been unable to walk, but that day he walked into his birthday party. So sad knowing how it all ends. Here's a bunch of random staffers that nobody knows. Martel said she wanted to give him flowers. So she picked some flowers from the garden that had grown under her window. We didn't even know when they started to grow. Strange red flowers that weren't even in the encyclopedia. One day the nameless flowers bloomed, and within days they had spread all across the garden. We still don't know what the heck is going on with these red flowers. They bloomed close to both Martel and Emile. I don't know why, but as she gathered the flowers, Martel looked almost celestial. I wondered how long these happy days would last. Not much longer, I'm afraid. I sat, staring off into space, dreaming of a future in that wonderful place. However, the warm season passed, and as the leaves changed color, so too did the children change. I had finally found a place where I belonged. I like that little girl with the red hair and the red dress. He loved to sing, and he was right-handed. But one day I noticed he had started eating with his left hand. And not only that, he didn't seem to be using his right hand for anything anymore. I figured he must be having some emotional problems. Meili had some background in counseling, but our attempts to talk to him revealed nothing. Every time I see him, he's singing the same song. It was a song his brother taught him before he died. It meant something special to him. Remember that it will come up in Meili's album. This image is so creepy. He refused to talk about his hand. When we tried to press the issue, he would start humming something. We couldn't figure out what it meant. His strange behavior worsened. If we touched his hand, he would cringe in fear. I wish they did the date thing that they did with the Emile recap. And attack whoever touched him. We continued counseling, but soon he couldn't even speak properly. One morning after his counseling session, he tried to cut off his right hand and died from blood loss. We still had no idea why. The children who had shared his room buried him. It may have been difficult for them, but that was our tradition. That's an odd tradition. Make the children bury their roommates. As I watched them lay him in the ground, I felt a sadness greater than any I'd felt before. However, I had no time to mourn his passing. Soon afterwards, several other children began to behave strangely. Some stopped breathing because they found it annoying. Some closed up every hole they had on their bodies. Some went crazy any time they saw anything blue. All the new cases were former roommates of the boy with the strange right hand. Before long, they had all become self-destructive. We desperately tried to stop them. We had to protect them. We weren't quite trying to save them. Maybe we didn't want to jeopardize what we had, what we'd fought for. But just like the first boy, their behavior got worse, and they died. Oh my gosh, this is a terrible image. It's freaky. It was a virus. When we investigated the deaths, it became clear that the medicine Meili had created was responsible. Sometime before, several children had come down with a serious fever. It was a contagious disease, and many of the children were infected. Meili engineered a treatment to stop the disease. She successfully suppressed the disease in several children. However, over time, the children's bodies began to reject the treatment, and we stopped using it. boy with the strange hand had been one of those children. I felt terrible. Because of our treatment, he had gone crazy and killed himself. Said Emile made it. Had the medicine we created taken the lives of my family? Was it all my fault? There's Emile voguing it up again. I have no intention of blaming you. Let's just find a solution. There's no reason to point fingers at anyone, right? Says the woman who made the treatment. Even after such a tragedy, Emile kept her cool. I was sure she felt a fair amount of guilt too, but she never stopped her research on the virus. She said she couldn't afford any more sacrifices. Maybe I relied on her strength too much. After that, I visited Meile's room every night. A woman who can share the guilt. She was my salvation. I yearned for Meile's body. I wanted her to ease the pain. She didn't reject me. The warmth of her body put me at ease, and I think that she felt the same way. The feeling of my skin against hers, it helped us forget. Hey, don't you think love is a stupid concept? It's just your body trying to pass on its genetic material. It's a scam your brain is pulling on you. If you think about it, the same goes for murder, right? Emile, your pillow talk sucks. Also, why are there red dots on your face? More children contracted the disease. We named the virus Epicari and continued our research. If we could eradicate the virus, we could bring back those wonderful days and rid ourselves of guilt. Sadly, things would only get worse. The infected became more unstable and began to lose their memories. When someone with Epicari died, their skin turned purple. Once the corpse is purple, the virus spreads. Epicari travels by corpse. We learned that burning the corpses would kill the virus. It was an evil virus, unlike all the good viruses. There were new cases every day. Those infected started to become hostile toward people around them. We were forced to lock up the infected patients. Once death was verified, corpses were burned once they turned purple. I would burn them before they turned purple. I always hesitated, but Emile never did. The children I'd read to, the children I'd encouraged, the children I'd loved. Emile would talk to me as we watched the flames. Isn't that Franz? The dignity of the dead or our lives. Which do you think is more important? Beautiful things are ugly and ugly things are beautiful. We are fools and saints. Jean got infected. He had finally completed his rehabilitation and was walking like a normal boy. Jean's future had just begun. He triumphed over hardship. Jean spoke to me, as if he'd gone mad. Why weren't we quarantining the sick children, like, very early on? Help me. The situation was beyond our control. We sent some of our staff to the government to get help. The orphanage was in an uproar. We had to calm the unaffected children even as we tried to create a new treatment. I had to protect the family that I had worked so hard to get, the family that I loved. I think I had a harder time dealing with the situation than the others. Things were only going to get worse. It was around that time that Franz started hiding his face. He started wearing a mask even when he wasn't in the operating room. He'd always had perfect eyesight, but he started to wear glasses. If we questioned him, he said he was okay and went back to treating patients and researching the virus. Other than the glasses and the mask, he acted like he always had. How do you wear glasses and a mask? Franz was a very intelligent man. If he was infected, I knew he would have the presence of mind to diagnose himself. But the virus affects your mental state. Everything was okay. He was fine. I had to focus on finding a cure. I was so naive. I refused to see the dark future that lay ahead. Gene didn't make it. He died in his cell, hugging the stuffed animal I'd given him. We didn't notice that he'd died. We didn't notice that he was dead until his skin turned purple. I could almost see the virus oozing out of his body. It was too dangerous to go near Gene. We had to leave him there. As we tried to decide what to do with him, Martell appeared. Her face was blank as she walked silently past us. She shone with the power of God. I like her dress. Gene, you're all right now. You're all right. I should have buried him with the fox. Or burned him with the fox, one or the other. Despite our protests, Martell picked up Gene's body and smiled at him. She buried his corpse by herself. You have to burn them. This is how the virus passes. Even though his corpse was infected, she buried him herself. I couldn't do it. I was too scared. I was a coward. All I could do was pray. Please protect her, Lord. I mean, I think God has pretty much bowed out of this situation. We got children dying left and right. The Epicari virus, that hideous purple thing. I finally made a breakthrough in our search for a cure. We determined that the most effective form of gene therapy was to use a microbe called Scylla. It was an unsettling swarm of microbes that could insert DNA into human cells. Scylla crawls into the body and eliminates the Epicari virus. Our Scylla treatment worked. It wasn't perfect, but when we administered it to the children, they calmed down and slept peacefully. However, it was only a temporary solution, not a cure. Scylla only suppressed the virus. We returned to our search for a true cure. It was around that time Franz began to cover his entire face in gauze. He'd often told me that he hated how he looked. One of the symptoms of Epicari was the exacerbation of personal issues. However, we'd assumed that the virus only affected children since their bodies hadn't yet matured. Franz insisted he was fine and refused the Scylla treatment. I never doubted him. I was too scared to doubt him. And I've only seen half his face, and he looks handsome to me. Some days later, government troops arrived. We asked the government for help, but their help had been rather long in coming. As it turned out, help was not what they were there to do. The boy kind of reminds me of Sasha. They arrived at the orphanage in gas masks and hazmat suits, ready to examine us. I wondered what their intentions were. They weren't doctors. They handled the children roughly, like soldiers. Once they had finished, they brought in construction equipment and erected a fence. They planted stone pillars and strung wire to make a fence. The fence encircled the orphanage, trapping us inside. They had quarantined us to prevent the spread of the virus. Aren't we like a small country place? No one is around us. I was locked inside with the virus. What was I supposed to wait for? They said, "We promise we'll be back to save you," before they ran away. The virus got stronger. We discovered it could infect adults, too. There was less of a delay between infection and the onset of hostile behavior. The death toll rose sharply. Hostile patients started to attack nearby people. They killed several uninfected people. We had no choice but to increase our security measures. We were exhausted. Through all of it, Franz continued with his research into the treatment that had created the Epicari virus. His behavior had become increasingly strange, and one night I saw him, he was wearing an odd mask. He was carrying an axe as he walked in and out of the building where the original treatment was stored. He was clearly infected. Show us the mask picture. There we go. But I couldn't do anything. We've been friends for over 10 years. Had I lost Franz now too? Could I shut him in with the others and watch him go insane and die? No, I couldn't. I couldn't do that. I didn't let Emile or the other staff members lock him away. What are you looking at? Don't tell me you think I'm infected. No, of course not. A few days later, Franz disappeared. The Scylla treatment was no longer effective. Nearly everyone at the orphanage was showing abnormal behavior. The people burning the corpses were infecting themselves and died. The remaining hospital staff were murdered by the infected patients. There was almost no one left. Martel, Emile, and myself, we secluded ourselves with the 2 remaining staff members in the room where we kept the syringes and made a last, desperate attempt at a cure. We put all of the surviving children in a cell. We had to leave them there. I mean, why would you do that when it can make them kill other people? I grabbed Martel's arm and ran toward the syringe room. But she broke away and ran off, ringing her bell. She used to ring her bell to get the children's attention. And when they heard it, the children would go to her. She was calling out to the children. But this time, no one came. I ran after Martel and hugged her skinny body to mine. There's nothing we can do. You shouldn't be saying that when you're a doctor. And you're trying to do something. That was what had happened. Franz appeared, axe in hand, running toward us. His face was hidden by a mask, but I could hear him screaming at us. He swung the axe like a madman. I pushed Martel out of the way and leapt at Franz. I realized, too late, that he was aiming for Martel. His eyes burned with fury as he swung at my helpless sister. He's wearing a mask. Emile grabbed Martel's arm and jerked her out of the way. There was a crash, and I heard something fall to the floor. No, the mask. I saw Franz's mask lying on the ground. He tried desperately to hide his face with his hand. The axe had embedded itself in the wall. With a scream of anguish, Franz forced his face onto the blade. Poor Franz. They should have had him kill people with the axe. Like, they made such a big deal of him having the axe and wandering around. And in the end, he only killed himself. I grabbed Martel's hand and ran to the syringe room. Our only hope was to develop a new treatment. We had no time to think, nor to mourn. We had to find a cure. I didn't know how much time had passed since we had started. The other staff members had given up and were trying to escape. I wondered how many nights had passed since this all started. Emile turned to me and spoke. I am infected with Epicari. I loved you. I'd never heard Emile talk like that before. As I stood there stunned, Emile turned and showed me her back. It was covered with scars. There is something terrible growing inside me. I'm losing control of my emotions. I did this to myself. I am infected with Epicari. How exactly do you cut yourself that way? Did you, whack yourself with a belt? Her voice was as calm as ever. I really did give her a good voice. Unlike Franz, it appeared that she had realized she was infected with the virus. But she had told me that it was growing. She was losing control. She was prepared for death. Were we all going to die like this? I didn't want to die. Martel's getting more clothes than any other character in this freaking game. One thing had been bothering me. This whole time, Martel had buried many corpses all by herself, but there was no indication that she had been infected. Everything we knew about Epicari said that she should have been infected. Perhaps we should have pursued this line of thought much earlier. I was desperate. I decided I had to try using Martel's DNA for the treatment. But it wasn't safe. We didn't know what a hostile infected person would attack us. There was an underground facility in the orphanage. This country had seen many wars. It was said that my grandfather had built the underground facility to be a sanctuary during wars. I had left some research documents underground. We decided to relocate there. The new treatment was an evolved version of Scylla. Martel's DNA turned it red. We named the treatment Theresia after Martel Theresia. It was our last hope. It was clear who the first test case would be. Maylee's symptoms had worsened. She was beginning to experience memory loss. She hurt herself more often and more seriously. Emile. The effect of the treatment was incredible. As a doctor, it was difficult to believe. But Theresia was a perfect cure for Epicari. We were ecstatic. We were saved. We could save everyone. There were still many people in the cells suffering from Epicari. We'd get them all and treat them one by one. We could save everyone. We put the red medicine into a flask and ran back above ground. It was our last hope. We ran back into the orphanage and into a nightmare. Soldiers walked the halls with guns that poured flame onto the patients. As we emerged, they turned their weapons on us. It almost looked as if they were enjoying the slaughter. One of the other doctors tried to protect a patient with their body. The soldiers set them both alight. Our last hope. And the comrades carrying our cure were being burned alive. Vaccine Theresia. It was supposed to fix everything. But everyone was dying. The flash shattered, and I watched our last hope die. Martel just stared blankly. Those soldiers were horrible. They caused all these problems. I took her by the hand and ran. I hid us in a secret room. I didn't know what to do. All I could do was run. Were there any survivors? Had Maylee been able to survive? Martel and I hardly dared to breathe for fear of getting caught. We kept quiet and waited for time to pass. I held Martel so she wouldn't hear anything, so she wouldn't think. Her hair was sticky and I could smell her sweat. Suddenly I remembered. When I came to the orphanage, Martel was always smiling. The sun was shining through the window, illuminating her. She was so radiant. How did we end up like this? I think a couple of days passed. We carefully snuck out of the room we had been hiding in. The orphanage was full of burnt corpses. The screams and fire of days before had been replaced with an eerie silence. I stood there shaking. I couldn't even move. Not like Martel. Expressionlessly, she gently buried each and every body. She missed quite a few of them. She was so radiant, so beautiful.
Let's plant these flowers where everyone can see them. That will make them happy.
Girl's an optimist. She smiled at me as she gathered up the red flowers blooming in the garden. That must have been a bouquet. What are you talking about? Why are you smiling? Had she gone crazy? We had been through so much. Was she trying to block out those horrific memories? Was she pretending to be a goddess? Was that it, Martel? Was that what you wanted to do? Meanwhile, her skirt has got to be like blowing up way too high. Should not even be doing that. She buried each corpse under a stone pillar in the garden and placed a bouquet of flowers on each grave. The garden we had parties in. With only her thin arms, she would cover each body with soil. All I could do was watch.
After we put everyone here, let's put the flowers on the windowsill. If they can see the red flowers, we can all admire them together.
Was that pity? You were truly a beautiful person. Oh my gosh, we're going to be an hour long at this rate. I thought this diary thing would be shorter, but I saw that nice girl stepped on a bug and killed it. She didn't even notice, but I heard the noise it made as it died. You wouldn't do that, right? A goddess wouldn't step on a bug. She did nothing. Or was she just ignoring me? I watched as she wandered around, eventually picking something up. She continued on into a room we'd hidden from the soldiers. It was next to my room and filled with some kind of vines. Martell had told me she liked that room because she could feel the power of life there. The thing she'd picked up was the music box I'd given her so long ago. She was worn out. She took her time, slowly winding the crank. But I wasn't watching. All I could see was Martell's blood. Had she cut herself on the vines as she walked in? Martell was bleeding. Why did that excite me so much? There's nothing else left. Oh, and her shoulder strap broke. I had to wipe it off. I started licking the blood off her shoulder. Martell didn't say anything. She was lost in the music box. Her eyes were so gorgeous, such a clear, perfect blue. Why were they so clear? My hands closed around Martell's neck. Her eyes looked up at me, warm and loving. So, you can bleed. Maybe I couldn't forgive that. No, maybe I was afraid of it. I couldn't stop myself. My grip tightened. She didn't resist. She kept smiling. She mumbled something. I wonder, what did she say? I calmly laid Martell's frail body to rest. I dug up the flowers she was always gathering. I flung them aside and kept digging. She should sleep here, I thought, my mind strangely calm. I kept digging. Before long, I had dug a hole in the garden large enough to fit a human body. I picked up Martell's body and slowly placed her in the hole. I picked up the red flowers I had thrown aside and laid them on her body. At that moment, I realized. I was beginning to lose my memory. I thought he was going to say he was infected, but, well, now he's saying it. I was infected? Very well, then. I would forget everything, then go crazy and die like the rest. I wanted to forget everything. I finished her burial and walked back to my room. The diary on top of the desk was illuminated by a small lamp. Everything started here. I didn't feel pain anymore. I felt like I was in a dream. There was a music box. She was happy. She always smiled while she listened to its song. I glanced at the music box, then looked away and walked out. What was I going to do? There was a knife on the floor. I pressed the knife against my skin. I could feel my blood ooze out. I polished the blade and hung it from a string in the shadows. The blade swung like a pendulum. I wondered if I would feel pain even after my memories were gone. As a doctor, you should probably know the answer to that. Would my blood still be red? I wandered through the empty orphanage. I was the only one left. I had lived here. What was left? Memories of my friends, memories of those who had died, or That's right. You're left. That's right. I forgot. You're still alive. I ran towards the stone pillar. I was running towards her. Martel was there. There was something red swarming around the pillar, but no trace of my sister. Those red beads, they were Martel Theresia. I remember Emile telling me, beautiful things are ugly, and ugly things are beautiful. I think so too. I'm losing my memory. You can't forget. Don't forget what you did. I am in a small room somewhere, crouched in a corner. I have a weapon ready. I want to make sure I feel pain and see blood even if I lose my memory. The red liquid that flows through my body, it will leave a message. Theresia. A message written in blood. So I won't forget, so I can atone for all my sins. Will I be forgiven? I can only pray. Because there's nothing else I can do. I go to sleep in this building infested with the red beads, because I loved the red beads. Oh my gosh, we have to go read the photo album now. It's been so long. Okay, so now we're going to quickly read through Maylee's photo album, which we weren't able to get in Dare Emile. And like I said, I had originally recorded it, but I think it works better as an epilogue. Martel is buried somewhere under those red flowers. I can't stand her. As long as Martel exists, he will never look at me. Martel always comes first for him. Epicari magnifies negative emotions and eventually leads to suicide. The boy who cut his right arm spent his childhood holding hands with his older brother. The song he learned from his brother was one his parents had often sung before they died. He used to sing that song when he was thinking about his mother. Perhaps it was just because of the stress, but as they grew, the older brother began to beat the boy. His big brother, who had always held his hand, died and left the boy all by himself. Franz died when he destroyed his face. He'd been self-conscious about his face all his life. He fell in love with Martel, and his disgust for his own face only became more pronounced. His infection multiplied those feelings, and they eventually killed him. When I was infected, the feeling that destroyed me was jealousy. I think I wanted it from the beginning. I knew from the beginning. I wished for Martel's death. I knew that the disease we called Epicari would grow from the medicine I created. I wanted to see everything destroyed. I knew what I was doing. I destroyed it all. To get what I wanted. We are all fools and saints. That's why I'm suffering from Theresia's side effects. Memories are not permanent. That's the way it should be. You forget the bad things and move on. That's how people are saved. But Theresia will not allow that. Theresia will bring back the memories you lose to Epicari. The memory of sins. A red sandstorm blows across my brain and the memories of my sins return. Theresia is telling me, don't forget. Don't forget. Those who have been injected with the red beads can never again forget their sins. Maybe this is the wish of the DNA that resides in Theresia. That's right. Maybe this is her wish. To this day, I cannot forget the sins I have committed. So, Meili kind of intentionally made Epicari because she wanted to kill Martel, although why she didn't just infect her and not infect the children, I don't know, but she made a stupid mistake of sorts and got a lot of people killed. So, that's Theresia. I think it's a pretty great game, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.